I'm Zach.
And I'm Darcy. Did you know that pornography doesn't have to destroy you or your marriage? We're the parents of 8 active members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and we love to help people just like you.
We're here to share hope and healing as we take you through our journey and the journeys of our amazing clients to greater joy and love. Come grow with us to a happier, more meaningful life. Welcome to the Self-Mastery Podcast. Hey, everybody, and welcome to another beautiful Mastery Monday here on the Self-Mastery Podcast. I'm your host, Zach Spafford, and today I've got Darcy.
Hi.
Hey, welcome.
Thanks.
And we're putting these all on YouTube. So this is your first time on the YouTube, and I put my last one on the YouTube, and now this one's going to go on. This is your first time on, and you're excited about this.
Not at all, but that's okay.
So this month, we're doing a webinar for those of you who want help overcoming pornography. If you're listening to this podcast and like what you hear, take the next step. Come to our webinar. It's going to be on April 20th at 7:30 Mountain Time, and there's going to be a link in the show notes, or you can just go to zachspafford.com/free call. Super easy. So the seed for today's podcast came from a post that a guy named Kris Heap put up. Mm-hmm. And in that post, he was basically equating success to the way that an auction happens. Mm-hmm. And everything that we do has a price. And in order to achieve the desired results in our lives, we have to be willing to cover the cost. And we pay for those costs in a variety of different ways. We pay money, time, energy, effort, discomfort, commitment, willingness. And I think some of those, they're like synonyms, but I think they have, a variety of connotations. But whatever you want to call it, it doesn't really matter. You and everyone you know pays for what you get. So Darcy, your family comes from an amazing history of auctioneers.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I saw this post and I was like, okay, we totally should do a podcast on this. Mostly because as I was growing up, my dad would always run the auctions that occurred at like the elementary school. When PTA was trying to fundraise money, they would always ask my dad to do it because my dad grew up in an auctioneering family. So when I saw this, I was like, oh my gosh, we should do this since I totally know what an auctioneer looks like and have
what a real auction looks like.
Yeah, and experienced
not just the ones on TV.
It firsthand a lot. So
yeah. So what are some of the cool things that your dad has auctioned off or has been auctioned off by his family? Yeah.
So my grandpa on my dad's side started an auctioneering business, and he was a pretty successful auctioneer. And then he had 4 sons. My dad happened to be one of them. And so my dad started, when he was right out of college or when he was young. Him and my mom got married really young. So he started in the family business, but my dad realized quickly that there wasn't quite enough to go around with 4 brothers and my grandpa. So my dad did end up leaving the auctioneer business. That's not what he did. But while he was
an executive for a giant lighting company.
Yeah.
That's what he ended up doing.
But while my dad was doing auctioneering, they auctioned off Helen Keller's house. And so my parents have some, what would you call them? I was going to say artifacts, but
artifacts. Yeah.
Is that the right word? I don't know.
Right.
So they have this big like tiger painting that hangs in their front room. And then they've got some like ivory carvings. And
stuff that was hers, but you wouldn't necessarily think, this was hers.
Yeah. But it's kind of cool because I always grew up going, wow, this was Helen Keller's. That's kind of crazy. Another one they did was...
if you don't know who Helen Keller is, she was a deaf, blind person who at some point learned how to speak. She was like a wild woman in the early part of her life. And then she was taught by somebody how to sign and then write. And so she became like a famous person in the early part of the 19th century.
Knows who Helen Keller is. If I know who Helen Keller is, I would think
I think you only know who Helen Keller is because your parents auctioned off your dad.
We have books on her.
Okay, that's true.
Anyways, and they also auctioned off the owner of Revlon, so his estate.
Yeah.
So kind of cool. Anyways.
Yeah. So in their work as auctioneers, how did that work? Just give everybody a taste of it.
when I was a kid and my dad would run the auctioneers auctions, I guess, for the PTA, there would be like a basket that someone donated. And then he would take up the basket, he would hold it up, he'd kind of give a like brief summary of what it is. And then people would start bidding. And he always started the price really low. And so in the beginning, there were like tons of hands. Everybody was bidding because everybody wanted that basket that was worth $200 for
$10.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to say 20. But,
20. Okay.
Right. And so as the price went up, less and less people were willing to pay the cost for the item. Now, there were some items that there were people that really wanted it, even though like the perceived value wasn't what they were even like, they were willing to pay more than what the actual value of the item was. So that was always interesting.
Yeah. Well, so we did that. We did an auction here in the ward, remember, a couple of years ago. And one of the young women was baking cookies. That was the item that she offered. And I think people thought that they were going to go for like 20 or $30. And like she was going to bring cookies every single month on Fast Sunday. A dozen cookies every single month. And I was
for
like,
a year.
For a year. I'm like, that's worth at least $10 a month.
Yeah.
And so me and this other brother in the ward, I kept bidding, and he thought he was going to get it for a song. And I was like, nope, more. I just kept bidding it up.
Well, because you were asking me, okay, well, how much would butter cost and how much would a bag of chips cost? And then, then the time to bake it. Then the time and So
it was worth $10 to me to get somebody to drop me a dozen cookies every week. And they were delicious. They were amazing. Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's how most auctions go. At some point, as the price goes up, fewer and fewer people put the money down. Fewer and fewer people are like, well, I'm not willing to pay that much. The cost of getting the thing is too much.
Mm-hmm.
And
typically at the end, there was always like just a handful of people,
one or two, maybe three,
that were willing to pay that cost. And they would just like keep, they just kept going and going. And then the item would go so much higher than most of the other people dropped out well before it got to the final price of what it truly costs to have that basket of goodies.
Yeah. Right. And the less people are, so once you get to a certain point, doesn't matter what it's worth. Some people aren't willing to pay that.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think what really happens, this is why people like auctions, right? People like auctions because the true value of the item is revealed based on the amount that the people who are bidding are willing to pay.
Mm-hmm.
And that has, I think, a really important correlation in our work. In the work that we do, people come to us and they tell us that they have a pornography addiction. It happens pretty regularly.
Yeah. Last week I did a post just saying, hey, if you have a spouse or you yourself struggle with pornography, do you believe that you're addicted?
Mm-hmm.
And about 80% of the people said, yes, they believe either they or their spouse are addicted to porn.
Yeah. And last week's podcast episode was on why I don't like using the term pornography addiction. But, the truth is people come to us and that's what they say to us. So, we're happy to meet people where they are and we'll keep pushing in that direction as best we can. So we don't want you to run away if you think, oh, I'm addicted and these people don't believe I'm addicted. Please don't run away. That's not what we're at. In a way, that's really the opening bid. The talking to us, the saying, hey, I have a problem is the opening bid. Listening to our podcast.
Yeah. I think that listening to the podcast is the opening bid.
That's the opening bid.
Yeah. Because I think once you get to talking to us or coming to a webinar, right, that's like the next bid.
Yeah.
And then it's, meeting with either Zachariah and doing a consult, like that's another bid, right? It's like, it's how much effort are you willing to put into getting to where you want to be?
Yeah, the result you're looking for. When we talk to people that, they want to know what it's actually going to take. That's another part of it, right? So part of it is just, saying I have a problem. Part of it's listening. Part of it's having the conversation. But another part of it is, what is it going to take? They ask that question. And, the first conversation, it's a pretty low bid. Even listening to the podcast, it's pretty low bid. What's the cost of a conversation? Basically nothing, right? It's just your time, whatever that costs. And, Darcy and I, we love speaking to people and we love sharing our story. and we do it for free. We've done Fifth Sunday lessons and Zoom meetings, and like the one that I mentioned earlier, we've done firesides, and in everyday conversations, we talk to kind of sometimes random people, and we got, what was it, Costco? Somebody like came up to us and she came up to Darcy and she's like, "Are you Darcy Spafford?" Like just random people having conversations because they're impacted by pornography in their life and they want help. They want to solve this problem. And in each of those conversations, I think we find a little bit of amazingness, and I think it elevates the awareness, and I think it elevates the possibilities for each person to a new level. And every time Darcy does a fireside or speaks in a Sunday school class, she just lights up and is just excited for days. That's kind of the funnest thing to see. She's never spoken in church, like from the pulpit ever, but she'll do it. Yeah, but she loves it. Like all of a sudden she's like, "I love talking at church." And that's kind of awesome. And I think we get immense joy out of this. Don't you think?
For sure. I love it.
And we want you to get immense joy out of the work that we do as well. So we would like to talk about what's the cost? What does it take to overcome pornography? If you think back to the auctioneer, only those willing to pay the price receive the prize. And I think that's true in commerce, regular old just going to the store and buying stuff, as much as it is in our emotional and our mental lives. If you want something, you have to pay the price. A contractor, like an auctioneer, often puts out bids to see what people are willing to pay to get their place remodeled. And I think remodeling pornography out of your life is like remodeling your home. Looking, the first thing you got to do is you got to look around, see what's there, decide what you like and what you don't like, and figuring out, what it's going to take to, make my life look the way that I want it to look. What we've done is we put together a cost sheet. Maybe you could call it an itemized bid of what it will cost to remodel pornography out of your life. So the first thing is becoming aware of problematic patterns. We do this in a lot of ways with our clients, and we just start by creating a bit more awareness. We help them figure out what is starting this and how is it going all the way through to pornography. Like, where do I start? Why do I go all the way to pornography? What does that look like? What different ways do the patterns begin? So, it might start with a thought, it might start with sensation, it might start with a number of different things. And then number two is how to intervene in those patterns. So being aware of the pattern is not necessarily like I have a brother. Okay. So this brother, he had an ingrown toenail that was pussy and disgusting and bleeding. And like, you looked at it and you wondered, why haven't you solved this problem? He was aware of it. He knew it was there. He just didn't do anything.
Well, I mean, I think that comes back to what price are you willing to pay? Like, yes. He wasn't willing to take the steps to take care of his toe.
Right.
Obviously.
Yeah. Until my mom was like, "We're going to the hospital right now."
Yeah.
It was gross. Right. So learning how to intervene in those patterns and actually start the process of deconstructing the patterns. The next thing is building new patterns. Once you know the pattern, see the pattern, and start to intervene in the pattern, even if you do that, that doesn't necessarily negate the fact that you have to have a way to deal with that stuff. Building new patterns and starting the process of putting things into place that will allow you to not just have to fight with your pornography struggle, but there will be an automatic process to manage that.
So one of the things that I had to learn when it came to patterns was I had to realize that when Zach would tell me things that I didn't like to hear, I had to be willing to hear those things versus just react or reject what he was saying, whether it was...
Or get mad at me.
Yeah, whether, and that didn't even have to be like pornography. It could be like that he had a really hard day at the office, or it could have been... That's another example. Just like how he was feeling, right? Like if he was feeling down, like I instantly would typically get anxious because I was like, oh no, I know what's coming. Like he's not feeling good. I know where this goes, right? Because I was very aware of his patterns.
Yeah.
And I think, for the person who's struggling with pornography, I think it could be helpful to ask your spouse, like, do you notice any patterns, right? Because sometimes other people see things that we don't see.
Another cost of eliminating pornography from your life is losing the unwavering validation that pornography provides. Something that has really been occurring to me, or that has occurred to me in the last couple of months, is that pornography never says no. It always says yes. And there is this validation in that. And really, to let go of pornography, you have to let go of the validation that comes from pornography. You know, you have the good feelings that come from arousal, and I think that's part of it. But this is a little bit more subtle, and I think it's a little bit beyond the arousal. And I still think it's really important and key to this process is saying, you know, even though this will never say no to me, I don't want it in my life.
Well, I think it was JFF that talked about this. She said that like the women's faces in pornography are always like, they're aroused, they're excited, I want you. Like they are like performing for you, yeah. Right? And so that feels like, oh yeah, this feels good. And she talked about how even in just advertisement, like if you look in advertisements, like the women always have this like suggestive face on, yeah, because that's exciting to people.
Right. And that validation is so intoxicating. It's not just, I don't think porn is just about the arousal. I think it has a lot to do with the intoxicating nature of this never say no reality. Mm-hmm. The next thing is enduring the real emotions that we feel. One of the things that we are doing when we use pornography, or we go and we engage with overeating or excessive shopping or any of those things, is
social media
is we are avoiding our real emotions. And to give up pornography, one of the costs is you have to be willing to endure those real emotions and actually live through them. Another thing that we have to do, so number 6 on the list, is openness about who we really are. And we go in depth on this with a lot of our clients, because one of the major issues that clients deal with, and that I dealt with, is not being willing to share who I am with Darcy. That's a really hard thing, because when we share who we are, when we're really open about who we are, there is a huge possibility of rejection. Like the reality there is that somebody's going to say no to you, and it's pretty wounding. The next thing that you have to be able to do is be willing to be uncomfortable. And I guess these are not really in order, because I think you probably have to be willing to be uncomfortable before you actually endured those real emotions. So what are the discomforts that we feel? Loneliness, inadequacy, feeling unloved, wanting to feel loved and not just needed. So we did a little bit of a poll, and these are some of the big things that people pointed out that were the reasons why they turned to pornography. So we have to be willing to just start. We have to start by being willing to endure these feelings and then actually endure them. So those are two different levels. Then number 8 here is letting go of covert contracts. So if you haven't read the book, No More Mr. Nice Guy by Robert Glover.
And you want to make sure if you look this up on yes. Amazon, you want to make sure you put Robert Glover.
By Robert Glover. You don't want to know what the rest of that would come out as.
Yes.
Right. He goes into depth on this, and we dive into this with a lot of our clients because covert contracts are something that they use. Not everybody does, but a lot of clients use these covert contracts. So a covert contract, if you don't know what it is essentially when we do something for our partner in an effort to obligate them to do something for us, especially when that hasn't been agreed upon by the other partner. And when you're on the receiving end of a covert contract, that feels like garbage. Mm-hmm. That's how we've had that, right?
This has gone both ways.
Yeah,
in our
totally.
Very
absolutely.
Much.
Yeah.
I'm just as guilty as you were.
Yeah.
Guilty.
So in what ways do you think you were guilty of it?
Oh, well, for me, I would be like, well, I mean, if I have sex with you, then yes. I expect you to do X, Y, Z, or, especially if it was, I didn't really want it. But I was just like, fine, whatever, I still was like,
you would use it to obligate me to things, and I would do other things to obligate you to have sex with me. So, so that's kind of what you're looking at. And then finally, and this probably isn't an exhaustive list, but these are the first 9 that we came up with. And I think they're a really good set of 9 that if you will work on these, you'll start making a huge, huge impact in what's going on with you. And the last one that I have here is learning new methods of emotional management. So dealing with your urges, dealing with those uncomfortable feelings, dealing with sensations. So those are all, I think, different categories of the ways that we are driven or tempted to engage with our misery stabilizers, which is like viewing pornography or excessive shopping or eating. Or
and along these lines, like we always say to our kids, hey, if you keep doing the same things, you're gonna get the same results.
Yes. Well, so I mean, everybody and their mother has heard that one, right?
Yeah,
that's not news to anybody.
But we say that all the time with our kids. If you want to achieve something different, then you're going to have to do something different than what you're currently doing.
Totally. And these 9 things, like I said, they're not exhaustive, but they are, I think, a good indicator of what price you're willing to pay. And if you're not willing to pay the price for any of these yet, that's totally okay. You don't have to feel like, oh, I got to pay all this right up front. Start with 1, do that until you're good with it. Because the more you do any individual one of these, the more likely you are to get good at it and be ready for the next one. If you look across our journey, I was not good at any of these for a long time. And in not being good at any of them, I felt like I was supposed to be good at them already. Like you become an adult, you get married, you have your first kid, whatever stage of life you're at, you're like, I'm already supposed to be really good at all of these things. And the truth is you're not going to be great at any of them. You're going to have to take time and do the work. It's going to take some time. Start with 1, do the next one, practice. That's why like in my program, when I do individual coaching with somebody, I don't meet with them every week. I meet with them every other week because I want them to do work in between time. Because if they're not doing work in between time, guess what? You're not going to get as much out of it. And if you don't get as much out of it, you don't succeed as well. And that's really the work that we do is I want you to succeed. I want you to have this growth in terms of you getting from point A to point B. And that's what Darcy and I love to see, but it's not going to happen without you doing the work. And you don't have to be good at it all at the beginning. That's why you have a coach. That's why you have somebody help you learn things. That's why we do this podcast, so you can learn things and do like little steps all along the way. And I love that.
I would say for me, I had to learn all of this along with him.
Yeah.
Because the truth is that just Zach stopping looking at pornography was not going to change the dynamic between the two of us. I had to do the work on my end because if I didn't, then he would just, have gotten to where he was. Let's just say I didn't change at all. And he was amazing and did all this work himself and just was like amazing. And I just stayed the same.
Was amazing. I am amazing.
Then I would have just found something else to take that place. It wouldn't have been pornography. It would have been that, he didn't clean the windows the right way or like load the dishwasher. Like that's just how it is. It's really more about changing the dynamic between the two of us to create the result that we're looking to create in our marriage versus just, hey, you stop looking at porn and then all of our problems will be better and life will just be perfect now.
Well, and I think I could have stopped looking at porn and not done any of these things. And you could have not done any of these things. Like we could have eliminated pornography as a problem in our marriage and we would have just gone and gotten a new problem. Like I would have ate more or whatever it is. And it wouldn't have solved the real relationship. It wouldn't have helped our real relationship grow. So I think there's 2 there, right? I could have done all of these things. And if you hadn't done the work, then, you would have found something else to be upset about with me, or we could have just eliminated pornography altogether. And then we both would have moved on to another thing and you still would have been upset and I still wouldn't be happy with who I was.
Yeah.
And I think those are big differences in the way that we coach, because when partnership works on this together, it makes the problem not just go away. It makes everybody in that relationship better. And that's really key to growing your relationship to the place where you want to be and you enjoy each other. Like I like her more now. I like you more now than I've ever liked you before.
Yep.
And I'm grateful for you. I know. That just turned into like testimony meeting there for a second where like somebody that
oh, do you have tears in your eyes?
I'm gonna cry. But I love it.
Hey, this is on video, man.
I know everybody's watching me.
And then there's me. I'm like, this is awkward. There's a camera in my face. I don't like it.
Oh, you're funny. But we love you guys. And that's why this is why we do it, because we love you and we want you to have the relationship that we have. We want you to have something so much greater than what you were given in the beginning of your relationship, because your parents taught you how to behave. And we want to help you grow past that to the point where not only are you eliminating pornography, but you're really living a life that you enjoy living with your partner, which is huge. And we're looking forward to meeting you and helping anybody out there solve this problem. All right, you guys. I'll talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks for listening to the Self Mastery Podcast. Every day, Darcy and I work with amazing men and women to remove pornography from their lives and relationships. If you're ready to take the next step in your journey, let us help you. Sign up for a consult at zachspafford.com/workwithme, and you can set up some time for you or your spouse to meet with me or with Darcy, and we can help you get started on your self-mastery journey. Thanks for listening to Thrive Beyond Pornography. If you're seeking guidance and support to overcome pornography for good and begin creating a thriving life beyond it, check out my free webinar, How to Overcome Pornography with Skills That Actually Work. You'll learn practical, proven skills guided by an expert coach who has personally overcome pornography. Whether you're getting started for just yourself or along with your spouse, Darcy and I can teach you the tools that will help you put your life on the right path for you. Be sure to check out the show notes for a direct link, and if you could take a moment to leave a review wherever you listen to podcasts, it would mean the world to us. Your reviews play a significant role in helping others discover the show so they can join us on this transformative journey. Thank you for being part of the Thrive Beyond Pornography community. Until our next episode, stay strong, stay focused, and keep thriving.